Bible, turn with me to John 10. We're going to be in that. We're going to be in a specific chapter, John 10, and we're going to be in verses 11 to 18. And I'm going to read it for you, but if you have a Bible and you want to follow along, you can do that too. But before we do that, let's pray. It's always good to invite the Lord into this room. So, Father, I thank you for this time we have together with our wonderful friends, those online and in the room. And I pray, Lord, that we would be bold today. I pray that would we be so bold as to dare you to challenge us, dare you to change us, dare you to transform us. And we just come, Lord, as empty vessels today. And we say, fill us with the measure you want. And Lord, let this time not just be time wasted or information, but let it be transformation. And so we pray this for your wonderful people today. In Jesus' name, amen. So John 10, I'm going to read it. They're going to throw it up behind me. It says this: I am the good shepherd. This is Jesus speaking. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and it scatters it. The man runs away because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. And just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock with one shepherd. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life, only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down on my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command I receive from my Father. So we're continuing our series, as Pastor Chris said, in the I am statements. And if you've been enjoying them, you've been following them, that's really good. If you haven't, and maybe you're new and you've missed some of them, just to catch you up to speed, the I am statements is essentially Jesus defining who he is for us. There's a lot of information, a lot of podcasts, a lot of content out there about who Jesus was, what he believed in, what he had to say. But what we want to do in this series, in the I am statements, they're found in the Gospel of John, is let Jesus do the work for us. Let Jesus tell us today who he is. Is that okay with everyone? And so I want you to see as we begin today, and just as a way of reminder, that the I am statements, they're not just abstract sayings. They're not some ahistorical thing that Jesus said once that has no relevance for us today. But they're actually really, really powerful, impactful statements that he put in the Bible and said to his people for a reason. Is that okay for us all? And so we're going to go through it today. And so I wanted to start today with a question to all of us. And it's a question that we all must answer and ask ourselves. And it's, who is Jesus? Who is Jesus to you? Who is Jesus to me? Who is Jesus to the world? C.S. Lewis, the Oxford professor, and maybe you've followed his Narnia books, he said it like this: a man who was merely a man and said the sort of things Jesus said would not be a great moral teacher. He would either be a lunatic or else he would be the devil of hell. You must make your choice. Who is Jesus? Either this man was and is the Son of God, or else a madman or something else. You can shut him up for a fool, you can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God. But let us not come with any patronizing nonsense about his being a great human teacher. He did not leave that open to us, and he did not intend to. And so question for you guys is, who is Jesus? Part of the I am statements is letting us answer that question. Who is Jesus? Who did he claim to be? And so today we're letting Jesus answer that question for us in another I am statements. Now, if you're familiar with the Bible, just as a little recap, in the Old Testament, when Moses first met God, Moses was sent to Egypt, obviously, to free the people. And he said to God, well, who should I say sent me? Like, who's the guy sending me? What should I call you? And what did God say? Just say I am. Simply that. And so Jesus, using this language, I am the bread of life, or I am the good shepherd, or I am the door, is very intentional. And I want you to see that it's very, very intentional. But it's also intentional today, because not only does he use I am, he uses I am a good shepherd. Now, shepherd, if you're familiar with the Old Testament, is in all the Old Testament. It's in Ezekiel, it's in Isaiah, it's in Psalm 23. Do you know Psalm 23? How does it start? The Lord is my shepherd. Some of you look at me like, was it a test? It's not a test. You got it right. I am the shepherd. And so Israel, the people of Israel, when they hear Jesus speaking, they hear these two statements, I am shepherd. And they immediately think, oh, this is a familiar tune. I've heard this before on the radio. This makes sense to me. And so last week, we discussed together, if you were here, I am the gate, or I am the door in some translations. Jesus used this statement in John 10:2. And if you remember, he's talking to a group of Pharisees. He's talking to the religious leaders of that time who think they're the door. You think they're the gate for the people to enter into God's presence, into the kingdom of heaven. And Jesus basically sets up this sheep metaphor, and we kind of went through that last week. And he kind of says, you think you're the gates, you think you're the door, but you're not. You're just thieves, robbers who come to steal, kill, and destroy. It's actually me. I'm the door. If you want life and life to the full, you can come through me. You can enter into me. Now, it's interesting to me, and I wanted to start off by way of remembering, because Jesus' words last week, I am the door, he said that. What do you notice about that statement? I am the door. Not one of the doors, not a door you could choose if you want to find life, but the door. I am the door for life. And so now if we're honest for a moment, just to begin today, it's a radical statement in our time to say something like that, in our cultural moment. Let's just take our city. Let's take the wonderful city of Reno. Let's just take the state of Nevada, say. They're going to put this up behind me. So Jesus claims to be the door. The door, if you want to find life, you've got to enter it. Now, this is a little Pew Research profile they did on the state of Nevada. And there's some things I want to draw your attention to here. So Nevada, if you see that 35th, Nevada is the 35th religious state in America. And so they did a number of questions, and they asked a few questions. And some of the questions were, what is the importance of religion in your life? And Nevada scored 41st. So out of all the states, we are the 41st for that. People who worship regularly, as you can see, we're 35th. So people who worship regularly in Nevada, we rank in America about the 35th. And people who believe in God. So who is Jesus? Believing in God, believing in Jesus as God. 37th. So really, really interesting stats. Now, why do I bring that up? I want you to pay attention to the stat on the left. That 35th and 49%. So 49% essentially in this research found that 49% of the people in Nevada would say they believe in God, and it kind of bears pressure on their life. They go to church regularly, and it's something that they care about. But it's interesting to me that in the state of Nevada, 51% say no. 51%, if I ask that question to them, who is Jesus to you? Well, not really anything important. Not the door. Not the door for my life. Not the door where I enter to find life. So it's really interesting because our state is kind of tied. It's kind of 50-50. We're probably in the 50, but outside of these doors, there's a whole 50% that don't see Jesus as the door. They don't take Jesus' claims to be true. And it's interesting. And so Jesus' claim, if we're honest, to be the door, to be the way, the truth, all of these things that we've talked about, in our city or in our state is a pretty radical statement. To claim to be the thing is pretty intense. I mean, maybe you have friends. Jesus could be one of the things. I'm cool with Jesus being a friend, someone I see on Easter and Christmas, but to be the thing, for Jesus to be the thing in my life from which I draw life from, it's a little bit intense, a little bit too far for me, James. Like, we live in Reno, right? We live in this wonderful city. We live in the state of Nevada, kind of a mini Vegas, a mini Sin City, a cowboy state. You could say these things. And one of the things we love in Nevada or Reno is options. How many of you love options? We love different things. Like, when was the last time you went to a restaurant and there was just one thing on the menu? Nothing, right? Or you went to a clothing store and there was one t-shirt, maybe one color of pants, maybe one different type of shoe. It doesn't exist, right? We like options. We like to go in. We like to see what we can miss out on, and we like to choose. We love our options, and I get it. I like options too. I really love options. But the problem with options sometimes, if we're honest in this room, is we can get a little bit, what's the word to say? Bored. Like, we like options because it keeps things interesting. To choose the same thing over and over again, it's kind of boring. Or maybe for you today, it's not. Maybe you like just choosing the same thing, and that's great. But it's nice to have options, and we live in a city that loves options. We love to choose different things. And that doesn't just mean food and clothing. That could be the serious things. But the problem with having a little bit of everything, choosing all the different options, is when you think about it, when you have a little bit of everything, you don't really have anything. You have a little bit of everything, but you don't have fundamentally something. And it can be exhausting feeling like that. And maybe you feel like that. Maybe you feel like there's so many options in life, not just from clothing and different things, but who am I going to marry? Where am I going to spend my money? What are my kids going to be like? What school am I going to send them to? How am I going to afford retirement? How am I going to save into my future? All of these options loom over us. And sometimes when we choose so many things and we're exhausted by all the options, we can get a little bit tired. It can be exhausting. And so we start to feel a little empty. We look at other people's lives, maybe on social media or in the news, and we go, I wish I had it like them. Or I wish I had that. Or why do I feel a little bit empty when I see all these options? And so what happens is, when we start to feel a little bit empty in one area, we try to fill it with something else. And fill in the blank for you, but we end up spending our lives sometimes chasing the next thing. How many of you felt like this? Maybe it's a bit exhausting. And so Jesus' words today, from last week, I am the door and I'm the good shepherd, they're very radical in a city like ours. Because not only is Jesus the door, he claims to be the door, but he also claims to be the only door that will really lead to life. Life that you and I are searching for, life that we really want. How many of you want to live a good life? Most of us in here. And so Jesus' claim is so radical because it claims to be that way. It claims to be the door to the life that you and I really deeply want. And yet so often we miss that because we like options. We like other doors. We don't want to enter just through Jesus. We want to enter through Jesus and something else. We like our options. And so in a city like ours, it's hard to believe that Jesus truly could be the way to life and the only door. And maybe you've spoken to friends like that. Now, I gave some silly examples like clothing and food, where we like options, but how many of you know there's some serious options out there that people are considering and doors that they're opening for life? I mean, I named some silly ones, but like, here's one. Why have one spouse when I can have anyone? You can just jump on my phone and swipe across. Same thing as a spouse, really. Why follow Jesus and die to myself when I can just go to the desert and burn the man for 5 days? It's an option. It's okay. Why give to the poor and be generous? Why take Jesus' invitation to be generous, like Pastor Chris was talking about, when I can just go to Target and buy kind of the same stuff I already have in my house? That last one hurt some of you. I know. It's okay. Like, whoa. Target's different. Very different. Like, if you just see how cute this thing I bought was. It's full. Why not? Threshold. I get it. Like, we have this blanket at home. This is a total sidetrack, but we have a throw. Have any of you been familiar with that? We have a throw at home, and it's confused me for several years now. My wife bought this throw. Can't use it as a blanket. Can't even look at it sometimes. It's there. It's kind of eternal. You just throw it on and admire it. It's an option. It's the throw. I don't know. Sometimes I just want to throw it in the trash. I don't know. I get it. But what am I saying? Options. We like options. A quilt's not enough. Why not throw a throw on top? I don't know. And so Jesus claims to be the door. And he introduces to us in John 10 that we just read another statement. And it is, not only am I the door to life, but I am the good shepherd. And so the question that we want to kind of explore together today is, what is the significance of this statement to us today in our cities? Is that okay with everyone? So let's dive in. We live in a culture today, and a city and a country that aches for good leadership. Like, how many of you wake up and you think, man, I just can't wait for my boss to be terrible today? Like, that's what I'm looking for. Like, I just love it when my boss is just totally unaware, mean, easily angered. I love it when they're not inspiring. I just love that. Like, I wake up for that. Like, just love my boss, man. Super selfish, super conceited. Love my leaders, man. They just think about no one but themselves. Like, that's what I'm after in a leader. It's like the best thing ever. Like, love how they crush me with every word. I live for that. That's a good leader. Oh, praise God. So encouraging. Like, how many of you in here, and aside from political things, how many of you just want a president that sucks? You're just like, yeah, I hope this year is going to be the worst year yet, and our leaders are terrible. Like, I'm ready for that. Oh, praise God, let it come. Let it come in my time. Like, no one here, right? You're all laughing because we ache for good leadership. We want good leaders. We want people in our life we can be led by who are good people. And what do we want most in our leaders? What do we want most in our bosses, from people at work to our presidents or to our governors or mayors? We want people we can rely on, people who genuinely care about us, people who aren't corrupt, who do the right things, people who are just, they seek justice and they're wise in their decisions. Like, how many of you know you want that in your leaders? We want leaders like Lincoln in the Civil War, perhaps, who united America. We want people like Martin Luther King in the Civil Rights Movement, people who are going to inspire and lead change in our nation. We celebrate that, in fact, in this country. We love good leaders. All of us in here today, at some level, ache for good leadership. We want to be led. And it's interesting because they're going to put up a slide in a minute. There was a recent poll they did in 2023, and they asked people, what is the one thing you want in your leaders? The number one thing. And the number one thing they wanted in people's leaders was trust. Americans want leaders who are trustworthy above all else, according to a joint 2023 survey. Now think about that. Trust. Not someone who's a good speaker, not someone who has a lot of money, not someone who's inspiring necessarily, not someone who's compelling and can lead a vision or looks the part. The number one thing, perhaps you resonate with this, that people want in leaders is someone they can trust. Someone they can trust. I think every one of us in some level relates to that. Every one of us in here would probably come down to that same decision, that we want a leader or someone to lead us that we can fundamentally first trust. That we can trust. At a micro level, with your friends, people you can trust who are your friends, who are your bosses, who are your spouses, who are your boyfriends or girlfriends, whatever it may be. But at a micro level, also a macro level, people in government, people who are mayors, people who are the presidents. We want someone we can trust to lead us. We want to be led by someone we can trust. So a second question to you guys. Who do you trust to lead you today? I got a Jesus. That was great. That was good. Who do you trust to lead you today? I think everyone else in this room today would resonate with the fact that we want to be led. We're okay with being led, perhaps, but we want to be led by someone we can trust, someone we can rely on, someone who's not going to hurt us like the last person or do something bad to us. And I think the problem for many of us is not that we don't want to be led by someone we trust, but who can we find to trust? Who is left in this world, this broken world, it seems, that we can truly trust? Finding leaders for us that we can trust is problematic for us because we live in the world. We live in a world that's broken. We live in a world where, honestly, it's hard to find people we can trust. And perhaps you resonate with this. Like, how many of you go to bed at night? And before you go to bed, you're like, I think I'm just going to leave my doors open tonight. It seems like a good idea. Like, I just trust people, man. Like, I just trust them. Like, there's nothing bad's going to happen. I just trust them. It doesn't happen, right? We lock our doors because we don't trust people. And that's just people on an everyday level. Now, go broad with me. What about our leaders? Sometimes it's hard to trust people because we live in a world where trust is easily broken, but it's hard to build. We live in a world where it's hard to trust people, and we all resonate with this. Perhaps for you, it's the family member who said they'd protect you, who said they'd be there for you, and they abandoned you. Or a friend we trusted to be there for us in a time of crisis, and they left us. To the world leaders who are caught in scandal after scandal after scandal. Think of the Watergate crisis. That was a few years ago, but think of the crisis and controversies that you hear in government today, where leadership breaks trust with the people. Even the church is no angel in this. I wish it was, but the controversy and scandals surrounding churches and pastors who have fallen is numerous, both in the Catholic Church and the Protestant Church. Scandal and trust it's rife. So the tendency, because we live in the world and we live in this culture, is to say, well, I'm going to trust no one. I'm just going to close off myself. Just can't trust people. So I'm either going to lead myself, depend on myself, because I can trust myself. At least I can trust myself. Perhaps that's the good way to go. So inevitably, what happens when we're trying to find someone to lead us, trying to find someone we can trust, is two things. Either we lead ourselves because we don't trust people, or we trust in someone, perhaps the wrong person, or someone who can't really lead us that well. It's two options. So the question for all of us today is not are we being led by someone, but who are we being led by? Because if you're unintentional about who is leading you in life, you will be led by someone, I promise you. It's not a question of if I'm going to be led, it's who by. Who are you being led by today? A friend? Family member? A podcast that you tune into weekly? Social media? Spouse? Culture? The city of Reno? The state of Nevada? Yourself? And more importantly, how is that working out for you? How is it working out for you? Who are you being led by and how is that working out for you? So who is leading for you? Who is leading you today? The people of Israel, if we go back in time to our passage, were just like you and I. They wanted to have a good leader. They wanted someone who was going to lead them into life, lead them into the promised land, get them a better future, and someone they could trust in the process to do that well. And yet all around them were terrible leaders. All around Israel at that time were terrible leaders, people with the wrong intentions, people who harmed them with religion, people who oppressed them with heavy laws, heavy burdens, people who didn't really care about them, people who were like the thieves, the robbers, or the wolves. And so they had the same, in some sense, predicament that we might feel in this room today. How can we trust people? And a better question is, how can we trust these leaders when they seem so terrible? Who can really lead us into life and life to the full? Do we trust Rome? Do we trust the Romans to do it? Do we trust the Pharisees? Do we trust the Sadducees? Do we trust ourselves? Or do we trust someone else? Do we do it alone? Do we trust ourselves to lead us into life? Since all these leaders are bad, since I can't trust anyone, can I trust myself? Can I lead myself? And amongst this tension that was probably going on in the people at the time, Jesus stood. And he stood in front of the people, surrounded by people who needed good leadership, surrounded by people who had trust had been broken, surrounded by people who needed leading. And he makes this statement: I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he is a hired hand, and he doesn't really care about the sheep. Now, the Jewish people, if we go back in time, they understood hired hands. They understood this metaphor. They were surrounded by people who were hired hands, who said they cared for the sheep and could lead them, but really fundamentally, they either didn't want to or they couldn't. People pretending to be shepherds, pretending to be people who cared about the people. And on the one side was Rome. Rome was kind of the military power, the conquest time of that, who really cared about one thing, and that's tax you as much as they can get, and you guys kind of figure it out on your own. So could they trust Rome? And then on the other side was the people they really looked to trust them, and that was the religious leaders of those days, the pastors, the people you think, I can trust these people, the Pharisees. But instead of leading the people, instead of being the shepherds that the Pharisees should have been, they were like the hired hands, who really didn't care for the sheep, and as soon as crisis hit, they were out. Their own agenda, their own time frame. And maybe you've experienced that. Maybe you've experienced that in the room. Maybe you've trusted someone to lead you, maybe in a close friendship, maybe in government, maybe in your own experience. And you've trusted them to lead you, and they abandoned you. When you needed them most, they just left. They were like the hired hand. And now every time I mention leadership or being led by someone or trusting people, you kind of seize up, you kind of cringe, you kind of clench your fist, because trusting people for you is really, really hard. It's really hard. How can I trust people when the people who were supposed to lead me did this to me? And so here Jesus stands. He stands amongst the people and he makes this statement. Now it's an interesting statement because Jesus includes in this particular statement an adjective or a word that he's never used in any of the other I am statements. Can you guess what that word is? Good. Kalos in the Greek. Jesus uses the word good here. Now think about that for a moment. He could have used any word. True shepherd, beast shepherd, home dog shepherd. I don't know. He could have used any word, but he chooses to use this word, good, and in this particular statement. Now, maybe it's coincidence. Maybe it just felt good in the moment, so he said it. He didn't call himself the good light of the world. He didn't call himself the good bread of life or the good door. He says, I am the good shepherd. Now why? Why use that word here in this context? Could it be that Jesus understands that it's hard for people, and the people he was speaking to trust people? He understands that he's had shepherds who have come before him, who have claimed to be good shepherds, but really they were the hired hands. That he understands the people he's speaking to, people like you and me. He understands people who have experienced bad leadership, hired hands. He understood scandal or betrayal, or he saw it in the people who had come before him. So he understands that people don't just need leaders. So many people claiming to be leaders. They need good leaders. They don't just need shepherds like the Pharisees or the Sadducees claim to be. They need good shepherds. That Jesus understands by making the claim that I am the good shepherd, that the cry of every person in here is, can I just have someone to lead me, to help me with life? Someone who won't hurt me, someone who won't fail me, someone who won't be like my dad or my mom, someone who I can depend on this time, someone to protect me, someone I can trust to lead me. Can I just have a good shepherd? Now, the radical claim of Jesus here in this passage that we're looking at today is not that he is just a shepherd, another shepherd claiming to be a shepherd, but the good shepherd. Finally, someone they can trust, someone you and I can trust to lead us, someone they can depend on, someone that will protect the flock, who won't run away like the hired hands, who won't abandon them, who won't be like everybody else, someone to trust. Now, some of you in this room perhaps have been disappointed by hired hands, been disappointed by people you thought you could depend on. You've been abandoned by someone who said they would be there for you forever, but they weren't. And it's left a bad taste in your mouth about leadership. And so when Jesus comes before you and says, I'm the good shepherd, there's a little tendency, a little gap in your mind that thinks, will he be like everyone else? Will he really lead me? Will he really trust? Can I really trust that he'll lead me? Or will he just be like everyone else? And maybe it's even been in the church that that's happened. Jesus wants you to know today that he's not like that. And you can trust him. Or some of you in the room on the other side, it's not that you've trusted in a hired hand before. You're trusting in hired hands right now to lead your life. And whether you know they're a hired hand or not is perhaps unaware of you, but you're being led by people who seem good. They seem like they can lead you and lead you into life, but they can't. They can't take care of you like Jesus can. Our culture or social media, a friend or something that's a hired hand, and as soon as crisis hits in your life, they'll just flee. They'll just leave you like everyone else. You need a shepherd today, but you don't just need a shepherd, you need a good shepherd. And I understand it. Been in faith a long time, been in church a long time, and I understand this. There's probably a question for some of us online or in the room today, and it's, can I really trust Jesus with every area of my life? And maybe you have. Maybe you've trusted Jesus in some areas of your life, but there's some things still in your life that you just, I don't want to give control yet and trust to that thing. Yeah, I'm not ready for that. How is Jesus really going to be different? How is he really going to provide life? How is he going to be different to this person, or fill in the blank? And I believe if you're willing today, wherever you are, perhaps here or online, that Jesus today wants to show you how you can trust him. And if you're willing to let go of that area in your life that you're just holding right here, perhaps it's your whole life, if you're willing to just hear Jesus out, I think he wants to speak to each and every one of us today. And so Jesus doesn't just make the statement, I'm a good shepherd, and leave it there. See you later, peace out. He qualifies the statement. He says this, I am the good shepherd because what? I lay down my life for the sheep. Now I have other sheep who are not in this sheep pen. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock with one shepherd. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life. I lay down my life only to take it up again. And so imagine it for me and with me. Jesus is standing amongst people who claim to be the leaders, claim to be the shepherds, and the people, the sheep, who have had bad shepherds, who shepherds, that term leaves a bad taste in their mouth. And he's standing before them and he says, I am a good shepherd. What do you think the people would be thinking? Here we we go again. Just another guy claiming to be the shepherd. I've seen this one before. So Jesus knows this. So not only does he point to his death and his future resurrection, but he qualifies why he can be trusted. Why is he the good shepherd? He can be trusted because he lays down his life for the sheep. Name me one leader that you know who has laid down their life for the sheep. Or maybe you can name one, and that's the type of leader we all long for. Somebody who will lay down their agenda, lay down their way of doing things for the sheep because of the love they have for the sheep. So Jesus here stands before the people, and he's not after gain, he's not after a vote, he's not after power or prestige or a title or money or anything else from us. Jesus stands before us today and the people at that time and says, I'm a good shepherd because I lay down my life for you. For you, I have laid down my life. He's a good shepherd because all he wants from you is you. That's why Jesus is a good shepherd. And the question that I think he's asking each and one of us in his own way today, to us, here and online, is this. Not only will you enter through me, will you stop going through doors that you think have life, and will you enter me to find life and life to the full? Follow me. But will you be my sheep? Will you take me up on my claim that I am the good shepherd? Will you let me lead you finally for the first time in your life? You can trust me. Who is Jesus to you? Who is Jesus to you today? Is Jesus someone who perhaps is someone you fully trust with every area of your life? Amazing. Is he someone that you trust with some areas of your life? Or is it someone who you still kind of got the hand up to? And could it be time to put that hand down? Take Jesus up on his claim. A mentor of mine once said this to me. You will only be fully loved or feel fully loved to the extent that you are fully known. And I love what Jesus says in this passage, because not only does he claim to be the good shepherd, not only does he say he lays down his life, but he says, I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Can I say this today? Some of you need to know here that Jesus knows you. And he knows you with all your stuff, all of your mess, all of the stuff that you've disqualified yourself with, the stuff that no one else sees on a Monday night or a Tuesday night, the things you say to your friends, the things you do outside of this room that we call church, all the things that you've used, all of the wounds perhaps you've collected over the years from terrible leaders, terrible people who've done terrible things to you. All of those things, Jesus sees them and he knows you. And the only thing he says to you is, I'm a good shepherd. I love you. You can trust me. I see everything. I know my sheep. But you can trust me today. The interesting thing about this passage is Jesus also mentions wolves. He also mentions things are going to happen in your life. Perhaps you've already experienced this. Things are going to happen in your life as a sheep where the wolves are going to come and they're going to try and scatter you and they're going to try and attack the flock. But the promise of Jesus is amazing here, that he is promising to be near to you. He doesn't abandon the sheep when the wolf attacks, but he stays to protect the sheep, to bring them into life, because he is a good shepherd. And so some of you need to be reminded today, perhaps by the Holy Spirit, that he is a good shepherd. And you can trust him, but also that he knows you, and he knows everything about you. And despite him knowing everything about you, all the mess, all the stuff that you say disqualifies you, he loves you and he accepts you. And he asks that you would trust him today. So I want to go back to the question I asked earlier. Who is leading your life? Who's making the shot calls in your life, in another way to say it? Who's kind of making the decisions? Or maybe a question that's better is, what is leading your life? Maybe the question is not who, but what is leading your life? Are there hired hands in your life? Are the things that you are believing in to lead you into life, but actually they're just hired hands? They look good, they look the part. Remember, a hired hand still looks like a shepherd, still does the job, still claims to be a shepherd. When crisis comes, those hired hands are going to scatter. What you believed in, who you trusted in to lead you, will go. It will abandon you. The question is not will it, but when. So what is pretending in your life to be the shepherd? What is pretending to be a good shepherd? Are there things in your life that you are letting lead you that you do not know, really, and it will never really satisfy you? What are those things you are trusting in? What are the things that you're hiding from Jesus today? And could it be time today, perhaps, for us in the room and online, to let Jesus finally be the shepherd? And not just the shepherd, but the good shepherd. Could it finally be time to give it all to Jesus?